just the betrayal of humanity, the patheticness of it. It's just so sad. Here it is.
Hi, David. I just heard you say on the stream that if the United States becomes a full-blown dictatorship by 2024,
Yeah.
you will be leading the country. So I've been thinking about this a lot myself, and is it...
By the way, stop this. Back into the first. We'll put the whole 2.5-minute clip. We'll go to break and come back with this. He admits it's a voicemail, but he sits there and has a conversation with it. Because, again, they won't have anybody live. So even that's a deception. It's like looking at pure deception. It's bizarre. It's Chargo. Oh, you cut the front part off. No, I want the front part. I want the front part where he's like up there. Oh, okay, here's our voice line. Here's how you call, and then we censor and decide what we want. I mean, it's all just like these weird, weak people seeking power and seeking control. And oh, there's a dictatorship. Oh God, we better flee to another country. There's a dictatorship. They had a Rasmussen poll and a bunch of others where 48% of Democrats want to put unvaccinated in camps. China is putting people that don't submit to them in camps. You people are in a biomedical tyranny. But again, that's what betas do. They follow. And they're scared, and they know the system's corrupt, and they know it's scary, and they go, well, I'm just going to sell out the system and make excuses because I want to be a winner. It's like in 300 where the hunchback goes out and sells him out because he wants to be a general. But you're not really a general. You're a joke. And it's so mind-blowing. We're going to go to break. Please remember, you piss off the leftists, you piss off the globalists, and you stop them and their evil operations when you take the live feeds from the Vanguard of Liberty, Infowars.com/show, and FreeWorldNews.tv, and FutureNews.news. That's the new link to promote. And of course, Band.video, and you share those articles, those videos. It pisses the left off to no end that we exist to call out their gaslighting, because they want full gaslighting power over everyone to tell them up is down and down is up, and that men can have babies, and that women, and all this crap. They're cultists. They're Kool-Aid bastards. They want control of your mind because they got left in their crib when they were little, and mommy didn't come back all day, and they crapped in their diapers, and now they have small, shriveled brains. I'm not being mean. That's why they project their hate on us, because they hate themselves. We love them, even though their mommies didn't take care of them. InfoWars is all about setting new trends, starting new systems of awakening. We are not here chasing and following Hollywood or the DC crowd or the New York elitist or any of these people's worldviews or ideas. We know who they are. We know what they're pushing. We know that their transhumanism is not a new idea. It goes back to the Garden of Eden. It is a satanic lie that we can transcend our bodies and become gods by merging with these different systems that emailed some of the customers and asked them, why are you suddenly buying DVDs? And they told us, it's because we know we need to have a hard copy in our library. We know because of censorship, we've got to go back to the old days, Alex, when you would put your films out to the public and tell them to make copies of the DVD, and we had a huge effect. Millions of copies were handed out to folks. And so, organically, the listeners are trailblazing by going back to low tech to get around the censors. They're making copies of the DVD, giving it to others, and telling them make copies of the DVD. So, COVID Land, The Mask, Part 2, incredibly powerful, an activist tool. It's now out. It's now available. We want you to get it. We want you to make copies of it. We want you to share it. And when you do that, you get 2 films on 1 DVD, absolutely free with it. Dark Secrets Inside Bohemian Grove and The Order of Death. And then that funds our operation and the filmmaker's operation when you buy the 1 film. So it's available until the 13th at InfoWarsStore.com. February 13th, 2022 is your last chance to get COVID Land, the film, Part 2, The Mask, for $19.95, and get 2 other films for your library. And then I want you to take all 3 of these films and make copies of them and share them with everyone you know. We can only offer this again for the next 2 weeks until February 13th, and then this deal is going to be over. I cannot express to you enough how important it is to let people know this is censored information. Both the films on the occult and the globalist, and both the documentaries that are out, Part 1 and Part 2, on COVID Land, of the real history and what really happened and the real science that the globalists are desperate for you not to learn. So thank you all for your support. Get your copy of COVID Land, The Mask, Part 2 and Part 1 as well at InfoWarsStore.com.
Leading a frontal assault on the lies of the New World Order, it's Alex Jones.
So now we look at the spirit of Judas Iscariot, betraying themselves, betraying humanity, serving Soros, serving Schwab, serving Biden, serving Fauci. Then I've got some more news I want to hit here. So this is just it's a snapshot of the bizarreness of acting like a tape call is a call, and then nodding with it and talking to it because you're so scared to actually talk to people and give them the power of being live. So the left always claims Jones has fake callers. Jones has fake reviews because they're fake, because they rig everything, because they're so scared they gotta control it all. And then to hear, because we just heard the Rasmussen poll, nobody wants to put you in a camp that's a Democrat. Nobody wants to arrest you. Nobody wants to have political prisoners. No. That's the Republicans that support Trump, who are the ragtag group trying to get back control of the country. But could we get martial law Republicans? Absolutely. Could that party be just as bad with neocons running it? Yes. But the neocons are allied with the Democrats. They're the ones pushing all this on record. Here it is.
We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-David P. Here's a voicemail I received with a very practical question about if it came time to leave the country, would you still be able to leave the country? It's a very good question.
Hi, David. I just heard you say on the stream that if the United States becomes a full-blown dictatorship by 2024,
Yeah.
you will be leaving the country. So I've been thinking about this a lot myself, and is it too late? If you wait until it's a full-blown dictatorship, will you
Right.
be able to leave the country? If you're that concerned about it happening, should you be making plans to leave before it goes full-blown dictatorship?
Yeah, this is a fair question, which is
All
like,
right, pause. Back it up 5 seconds. I'm not going to edit this. I want you to hear it in its congruency. They admit, and I've played the clips from the Davos group, the UN, all of it, that it's a world ID where you won't be able to travel or leave your house, quote, 1/2 foot if you don't have the vaccine passport. And I have a whole stack of articles I'll show you about that. And they're saying that Republicans are the ones that passed the law to put kill switches in all the cars, which is now law. I mean, the Republicans are horrible, weak, pathetic, cowardly folks on average. I don't like them. But they're not the people in the driver's seat like the Democrats. And imagine, though, this fear porn. The Trump supporters are going to have a establishment. That is a lie on its face. Continue with this garbage.
This is a fair question, which is like, if things completely changed overnight in the U.S., and all of a sudden no one was allowed to leave, the plan of saying, I will stay if and until it gets really bad, doesn't work, because if it got so bad, you wouldn't be allowed to leave. I don't, when we talk about the Canadian political scientist who said the U.S. could be...
Yeah, back in 5 seconds. No, exactly. No. Listen, you've got the media, you've got the universities, you've got the military, you've got the banks, you've got Hollywood, and you're like, hey, don't worry, you don't need to leave. We're raping America really good. We got drag queen story time going on, okay? We got the evaluation of the dollar. We got Cloward and Pivot. We're gutting this bitch. We're revolutionaries. We're alpha males. We're gonna screw this country like a tied billy goat. That's a little translation. The exhilaration of joining with evil, the exhilaration of joining with the UN, the exhilaration of joining with Klaus Schwab, the exhilaration of, you're a team player, you get lots of money now. Let's continue.
US could be a dictatorship by 2030 or whatever else the case may be. I believe that it would be a continued slow slide in that direction, and I am counting on the
More projection is what they're doing to us.
that I would have time to get out if such a time came. Now, if it's so slow that the frog doesn't realize it's getting burned, right?
Total projection.
Would I know when it's time to leave? These are all fair questions, but I don't think it would be like an overnight, no
And
more
once again,
flights out.
so they're doing this to us. Classical corporate takeover, censorship, debanking, arrest, tyranny, collapsing. And then he's talking about them as victims. Talk about a fantasy. Talk about a simulation. He's in his own, but he knows it's not a simulation. He loves this for his little groveling followers that actually drink this Kool-Aid. Let's continue.
But maybe some people in the audience have a different perspective. On the bonus show today, we will talk about the
All right, that's enough. Oh, the bonus show where you want to make money. Everybody else that makes money and fund themselves is bad. If I was telling my children who not to be, it's that guy. I mean, and he's a disgrace. And I don't say that like, God, I feel good about myself. No, he makes me feel pathetic. Look at those eyes, man. That dude is gone, ladies and gentlemen. Thank your lucky stars every day you're not Dave Bagman. Look at that. That is a freaking predator right there. Who thinks he's smarter than you, thinks he's better than you, he's gonna beat you, he thinks. No, Joe Rogan and Bill Maher, they're all smarter than you, big man. Because, they've played both sides, but now they know who's gonna win. You're on the wrong side of history. And I'm so sorry for what's gonna happen to you by your own decisions. But he's an archetype, a sample out of the fetid latrine or cesspool that is the system. That's the vanguard. That's the stay behind network. That's the scorched earth leavings they had got as the globalists back off to armored fortresses and dig into their underground bases, literally. You think the people that have the underground bases call up people like Pac-Man? No. Pac-Man never talked to the New World Order. Pac-Man never got trying to get hired by the Kissinger Group because Pac-Man's a loser. He's a sellout. He's not a real man. He's not a knight at the round table. He didn't actually have a real discussion with the power structure he worships. See, I said no to the evil power structure. Not because I was a hero, because I had God. I had a connection to the infinite. I knew this was a failure. This was not good. I didn't join with God and justice because I was a good person. I did it because I had discernment and wanted to be with God. Mr. Pac-Man is not with God. And he is everything you don't want to be. All right, I'm done talking about it. I got a clip here I want to play that is important. Listen to this. The Canadian Broadcasting Company, state-run, controlled by Trudeau, says that without any evidence, the Russians are in control of the trucker convoy. They don't want to take 460 injections of an mRNA experimental shot. They don't want to stay locked up in their houses until they can't have their neighbors over. They don't want to live under martial law. So because they want freedom, the Russians are in control. That's right. Because see, the globalists know their weakness is they're a foreign multinational corporate takeover. It's like, well, we're a foreign takeover. What do we do? Well, Jones is trying to expose Klaus Schwab as the human takeover. People can galvanize against us. We'll just say it's the Russians because we're all Chinese agents on the globalist side. You understand? So let's just say we're Russians because the Russians don't have their act together. We can bully them again. And that's it. So here's the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting System Company, telling you the Russians. That's right. You stand out in the cold, you drive your truck into us. You didn't do that yourself. The Russians were in control of your mind. Here it is.
You know, given Canada's support of Ukraine in this current crisis with Russia, I don't know if it's far-fetched to ask, but there is concern that Russian actors could be continuing to fuel things as this protest grows, but perhaps even instigating it from the outset.
Well, again, I'm going to defer to our partners in the public safety, the trained officials and experts in that area.
So that's like saying little green men from Mars could be doing it, or maybe unicorns are doing it, or maybe witches on brooms. I mean, give me a break. The Russians have the biggest country in the world. They can't even run their own country. They're under globalist attack. But they're not giving in to the New World Order and the Hollywood pedophiles, and that's why the system's pissed. So let me just warn everybody that serves this evil system. The pedophile rings are getting exposed. Your programs are going down, and nothing on earth is going to stop that. Just know that. I'm going to end this transmission. Who's hosting Saturday Night Live tonight, guys? Owen, the Cup Destroyer Schroyer, is going to cover Canadian truckers and the latest developments, world rejecting globalism, and your phone calls for 2 hours straight with Sunday Live that exists in defiance of the New World Order. Remember, we're not funded by Soros or Google. We're funded by you. And the sale ends tomorrow. 40% off Rainforest Plus, 40% off our multivitamin, 40% off our super vitamin C Rose Hips Zinc Combo. Please keep us on air. InfoWarsStore.com. We'll be right back with hour 3 and 4 with Owen. With all the craziness going on in the world, with the globalists plotting their next big lockdown, the next phase of the Great Reset being a staged cyber attack, with the deep state pushing a civil war, not just here, but in Europe, and war with Russia, with the massive inflation and all the other garbage that's taking place, like supply chain breakdowns, you need to get prepared now with high-quality storable food that is ready to ship. And it's been 4 years since My Patriot Supply at preparewithalex.com has offered their storable food at 25% off. 4 years. But right now, it's 25% off until February 13th, 2022. A little over 2 weeks from the time I'm cutting this to get 25% off at preparewithalex.com on the entire catalog of My Patriot Supply. Act now, get prepared now. This is absolutely essential for everybody that wants to be self-sufficient.
On our champions mega. Here's a man who can show you.
Is the InfoWars Store hotline. 888-253-3139. Is the InfoWars Store hotline. 888-253-3139. Is the InfoWars Store hotline. 888-253-3139. Is the InfoWars Store. 888-253-3139. Is the InfoWars Store hotline. 888-253-3139. Is the InfoWars Store. InfoWarsStore.com is simply the best. InfoWarsStore.com beats out all the rest. 888-253-3139. 888-253-3139. 888-253-3139. Is the InfoWars Store hotline. 888-253-3139.
to the Most High that King David wrote about in the Psalms. We can officially say that the New World Order is in full retreat and is in total collapse and crisis. That's why they're trying to collapse the world economy so they can pose as the saviors and distract us from the crimes they've committed. If they're unable to fully crash it while posing as the saviors, they have to crash it, smother it, and pose as saviors at the same time. If they're unable to pull that off, it's over for them. It doesn't mean there won't be new corrupt groups and new attacks and new permutations, but this major satanic Luciferian wave, this eugenics-based transhumanist system, can and will be defeated if we are vigilant. You know, it's just wild to see Elon Musk, whether you trust him or not, coming out against the New World Order, coming out against the forced shots, coming out in favor of the worldwide trucker protest emanating at its heart from the capital of Canada, Ottawa. The Occupy Ottawa operation peacefully now unfolding. And to see him coming out and saying, well, they're trying to depopulate us, we don't want robots to take over, we need to have more children. And then, of course, I know the inside baseball that he's telling people that he knows here in Austin that he is awake and doesn't like the New World Order. I didn't know that. I trusted that a couple years ago. This is some of the things he's been pushing that I don't just see as too freedom-oriented, like the Neuralink. And then I see him and Joe Rogan Instagramming out there at his command base outside Austin with Jordan Peterson. It's just amazing to know that the awakening to the whole globalist program is so mainstream now that it's the hottest thing in pop culture. You know, I'm not really going to get into all this, and it doesn't actually inflate my ego. It just is an example of what you should know and what's going on. But let's just say this. The biggest, hottest movie stars right now are in a big collaborative coming up with a Alex Jones movie. And who knows if that'll get made, but that's what's going on, people that are household names. And then we also criticized quite a bit for going to the Davos group. And I only tell you that story so you get an idea of how hot freedom is. But see, for us, the trailblazers, way out at the tip of the spear, that means this audience of activists as well, we have taken the heat, we have taken the pain, we have taken the censorship and the lawsuits and the dirty tricks, but we've persevered thanks to God working through you. So I don't feel bitter to see people now across the political spectrum, including Bill Maher, coming out against the New World Order, coming out against censorship, coming out against the left, because that's what winning looks like. It's very, very frustrating, I know, for a lot of people that are gunsmiths and former special operations operatives, some of the most elite units there are in the Army and other groups, and they see the super pop nature of guns, and they see how it's a bunch of LARPing and a bunch of former leftists getting into it now, and they don't have dedication, and they haven't paid their dues. And I explained to these guys, hey, this is what winning looks like. You want to get the general dumbed-down mass of domesticated people on board with us? Once they come on board with us, they're going to have a lot of problems still. We're going to have to walk them through this. Taking the world back is not an elitist operation. And I understand I'm not calling the military people wannabe elites. To them, it's just frustrating because they've paid so much and been through so much, and they see a bunch of people coming on board now that the hard work's been done. But that's the way it always is. You should celebrate that, not be mad about it. I celebrate Tucker Carlson waking up, and Joe Rogan, and now Elon Musk and everybody else. And of course, now the next phase, and things are really going to get crazy. Stay with us. It's hard to believe January 2022 is almost over. And that means our big New Year's special is about to end. The highest quality, whole food-based, multivitamin, and our best-selling vitamin C with zinc and rose hips formula that absolutely turbocharges your immune system are both on sale for just a few more days for 40% off at InfoWarsStore.com. There's a lot of other great products as well. project is falling apart. It's an absolute wreck. And to force it on us, they are going to have to pull out all the stops and accelerate to where they want it to be in 10 years now and take the gloves off with us. And that's only going to backfire that much faster. But they will continue to double down and double down and double down until we have a giant war and total depression and billions dead. And that's what most analysts believe is a very good possibility. Put that headline back up, thank you. I want to read it, folks. Sunday Live. The globalist Hollywood pedophile axis of evil is collapsing, and they want to take us with them. The New World Order, social engineers, are desperately trying to start wars, crash economies, and create civil unrest in a desperate attempt to smokescreen their crimes. Tune in and spread this Sunday edition of the Alex Jones Show as we chronicle the epic awakening of humanity and the coming globalist instigated crises that humanity must and will overcome together. And that's where we are. So let me make the big announcement here. And I've been making this announcement a lot, but I want to make it very, very, very clear to everyone, including Klaus Schwab, including Prince Charles, including Queen Elizabeth of Gotha, including the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and all of the out-of-control, psychotic, satanic, so-called elites. You have failed, you are failing, and you will continue to fail. And your outrageous attempt to take over the biological processes of humans and turn us into factory-produced, corporate-owned creatures will fail. And your thinly veiled excuse of bettering the race to create the Ubermensch we know is yet another level of deception. And that's why you see an exodus from the New World Order. And I can list all the names here, but now Bill Maher, Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, everybody else you can name now, understands that you have corporate junkies that are giving their talking points, like the Young Turks and others, who are hated and have almost no viewers and are a joke, and they're gaslighting people. But it doesn't matter where you are in the world, everybody is breaking with them. CNN has 100,000 viewers on average. This Sunday show will have over 3 million people that watch and listen to it conservatively. They have 100,000. Their top shows, 800,000. Joe Rogan's biggest podcast have 100 million views. His smallest, 11 million. They're a joke. They're over. And they can take Alex Jones off the air. And they can take Joe Rogan off the air. People are so hungry for the truth, whoever stands up and tells it will immediately become huge and giant. And they'll never be able to whack that mole and keep people down when they're looking for the truth. And not even somebody to tell them what to think, like the globalists do, but telling people what they already know, they already see, and validating things they've experienced. And having that sense of community based on truth and discovery and exploration together. So, we're not out of the woods. And as they say in Pulp Fiction, the wolf says, let's not start celebrating yet here. But we're definitely not on our heels anymore, and we're leaning forward into this, and there is an exponential awakening curve. I'm not going to get into off-the-record things and conversations with people, but Hollywood is completely collapsing, and there is giant rebellions within it of people wanting to completely break with it. And that's happening. And that's a bellwether of the globalist cult and their mindset and their fangs of the cobra that they're trying to inject into us in poison. And the fact that the very venom packets, the very venom pouches of the satanic order is being defanged and rotting out of its head right now. It's a very, very beautiful thing. So there is an exodus away from globalism. There is an exodus away from Satanism. There is an exodus away from pure, unadulterated hedonism. There is a real desire to rediscover God and family and decency and honor and hard work. And the lockdowns of people. All of this is chemical attacks, and the biological attack of COVID-19, and the more intense attack of the deadly gene therapy injections. This is all very serious attacks by the so-called ruling class because they're failing. And this doesn't mean that they're not going to launch even bigger attacks. But you notice every time they double down, every time they try to bully us, every time they try to censor us, every time, if we don't back down and we don't give up and we fight back and improvise and overcome, we get stronger, they get weaker. And every day we're out here in this jungle of reality fighting for truth and justice and being made to rely on the Holy Spirit and God's direction. We get closer to God while they get further away. And they're more lost than ever. We don't celebrate that. But at the same time, understand our enemies are a joke. You know, I saw this clip a couple weeks ago and I meant to play it. And then I was surfing around today in my email. Somebody sent it to me. And I want to play Eleanor Holmes, ancient member of the Democratic Party, who Pelosi seriously considering as the person to be the chairwoman of the Transportation Committee. We have the head of the Department of Energy saying they, quote, want to bankrupt oil and gas and coal, and that they've doubled gas prices to make you learn to get off of it. But here's this lady pulling up at the Capitol, running into two cars. Her assistants there could back it out and park it correctly, but they don't even care. So she does double hit and run. Well, the video, go start rolling it. They do a double hit and run, and then they just leave. They just walk off because they're royalty. They don't care. This is who's in control of the nuclear weapons. This is who thinks they're a god. This is who wants to censor you and put you in a FEMA camp. This is who wants to arrest the, quote, uninoculated and put us in forced labor camps. The majority of Democrats support that in a national Rasmussen poll. These people, Pelosi and Biden and this woman, are emblematic of the collapsing system that they control. They're collapsing, not us. If we don't decide to just crawl in a grave with them politically and let them con us that we're collapsing, that we're over, we realize we're separate from them. We're Americans, we're a race, color, and creed that love justice and freedom. If we understand that and transcend them, then it's their destruction, not ours. And all we got to do is not engage them and not fight with them, and they're going to burn themselves out. Here's the video.
Police north is struggling to park her car right now.
And she has hit that red car next to her repeatedly.
And we're taking pictures.
And we don't think they're going to do anything about it. And if she parks like that, she should not be a member of Congress anymore. Is she going to park like that?
It looks like it. Yeah.
It's a giant parking spot. You can park a huge, largest Ford pickup or Dodge pickup there is in there. You can park a freaking dump truck in the parking spot, and she's ramming her Prius or whatever it is into these cars. And then they just get up and just wander off. Who gives a damn? And again, this is how they wreck your cities. It's how they wreck your life. It's how they defund the police while they've got bodyguards. And this is our enemy. This is the parasites that have taken the country over. And they have nothing to do now except get a civil war going so they hope they can have the military have a civil war with us. No, we are not going to play their game. They are politically dead. They want to take us with them, and we're not going to let them do it. When we come back, I've got Bill Maher. Wait till you hear this. You have until February 13th, 2022, or a little less than 2 weeks as of the time I'm taping this announcement, to get the documentary film COVIDland Part 2, The Mask, at InfoWarsStore.com exclusively, and get a free copy of 2 of my groundbreaking films, Dark Secrets Inside Bohemian Grove and The Order of Death, that deals with Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, and so much more. People are like, why are you selling DVDs? Because everything's got to go low-tech now with all of the incredible censorship that's taking place, and you're authorized and encouraged to make digital copies of these and DVD copies of these to get around the censors. It's having a huge effect. You're also encouraged to donate copies to your local library, police departments, you name it, whatever you do, inform people. You've got until the 13th to get your copy of COVIDland Part 2, The Mask, and get 2 films free with it for the one price of $19.95.
children in masks is absolutely dangerous.
And this has to stop. Defend our children.
The air should not be illegal to breathe. COVID Land, Episode 2, The Mask. Order your copy now at InfoWarsStore.com and receive Dark Secrets Inside Bohemian Grove and The Order of Death absolutely free from InfoWarsStore.com. You're watching The American Journal with Harrison Smith. The Alex Jones Show. This is The War Room with Owen Schroyer. InfoWars.
And then new world order.
Every morning before I start writing or shooting a video, I take 2 capsules of brain force for a sustainable burst of energy. This is, without question, the most powerful nootropic I've ever taken. And it comes with many crashes or producers associated with energy drinks. It's Addison-free, nothing artificial. It's Brain Force Plus. 3,000 to 5-star independent reviews.
Hey,
What? I feel like my microphone's too sensitive.
you ready?
Goddamn fucker. Listen, fuckhead. You have fucking crossed the line. You son of a bitch. You piece of shit. You fucking goddamn fucker. Listen, fuckhead. You have fucking crossed the line.
Hey,
Yeah, what's up?
what's going
Can
on?
you hear me?
Yes.
Is my mic too sensitive?
No, it's good. You know, it's interesting too because the DA, I don't know his name in New York, is failing to prosecute a lot of these lower level crimes. And it's almost like they want people to move out of New York so that either, you know, billionaires or people with money can buy up property.
Well, I mean that's part of it, but they just want to turn the whole city into a liberal paradise and a hellhole for normal middle class working people. They want it to be basically the tale of 2 cities. They want to have they want to cater to the richest of the rich, and then they want their peasant class slaving away in the streets and in the Brooklyn and the Bronx, waiting on them hand and feet. They do not want a middle class in New York City. I mean, and a big part of it is instilling fear. I mean, you know, you have America's crown jewel city being ripped apart.
I have never
Dangerous.
seen so many people move out of New York City, and most New Yorkers are like extremely loyal to the fabric of that city because they grew up there. It's a very communal kind of place, very cliquey, extremely diverse.
Well, I mean, you have to remember that it's not a place conducive to have a family. It's hard to do even the simplest things. Going out, you know, riding your bike, It's extremely difficult, and um, it's the cost of living is astronomical for what you get. Um, it was never um, a city for the middle class. It was always for for the haves, Manhattan, and then the indigent and poor lived in the slums in the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens, who wait on the elite, or better yet, predator class.
It's like a research lab for the global elites and billionaires. But Alex Jones was talking a little bit about um, how there are a few billionaires who are turning against all of this global COVID hysteria nonsense. Elon Musk, Bill Maher's not a billionaire, but Bill Maher is turning against it. People are sharding whatever it is that's causing this crazy, um, you know, deprivation not only of civil rights, but just this lack of common sense. Masking doesn't work. The vaccine doesn't necessarily stop the spread of COVID. Um, and now we're seeing in Canada, we're seeing up in Ottawa that there's this trucker convoy, and apparently it's stretching from Manitoba all the way to Ottawa. So that's 3 provinces, maybe 4, and they're surrounding the capital in Ottawa. Um, but the big media network, CNN, and even Fox, they're not really covering this. And it's all over independent news right now. It's all over. In fact, everybody in Canada that I've talked to mentions it because people are getting
Well,
really sick and tired of the oppression.
well, let me first start off with what you said about the members of the predator class starting to change their tune. You have to remember that Elon Musk is a front man for DARPA. He didn't make his millions. He's a front man for DARPA. SpaceX wanted to put chips in everybody's head. That's what DARPA has been. Um, what's the right word? That's what DARPA has roadmapped for years. So when you have someone like him, and then you have Bill Maher, who is actually a puppet for the predator class, there you see this narrative shifting. When you see people come out against it like that, it's effectively trying to push the liberals into starting to change the narrative, shifting their focus, right? Because what do they want their focus shifted to? In about 2 weeks, we want the focus shifted to Russia, Ukraine, China. We don't want to talk about COVID anymore. But with respect to the convoy, I think it's interesting that no mainstream media is picking it up. And I haven't followed it too closely, but I've seen some photographs, and it is odd. I mean, I turned on Fox News this weekend, and it's the same 3 stories. There's a segment on COVID. There's a segment on the weather. There's a segment on Biden's Supreme Court nominee. There's some bullshit segment about Trump. And it's just repeated, recycled all day long. They don't want to talk about real news. And it just shows the corruption in the mainstream media.
Fox is just as bad as anyone else, except for the fact that sometimes they allow common sense out. And Tucker Carlson is a perfect example of that. But still, at the same time, it's this conservative, liberal lock on the news. And now you're seeing more of it. In fact, I've never seen it larger. Biden has been really a gift for allowing this to happen. If not for Biden, none of this would have never have happened in terms of like people waking up to all the nonsense regarding the continual deprivation of our rights over a very short time, and of course this woke culture thing. And I think if you dovetail this into um, what's happening with Joe Rogan at Spotify, and how the mainstream news jumped in immediately instead of covering what is really an important story up in Ottawa, they wanted to censor Joe Rogan. So that shows you exactly what their priorities are, which is to downplay real, legitimate protest where Canada does not have a First Amendment. Canada has more of a police state up there. Their court system is completely lockstep with the liberal, almost socialist government up there. Half of their cabinet apparently is a part of Klaus Schwab's Davos Young Leader Training Group, which is a propaganda committee. And so people have woken up to some degree there. And there is still this divide, this class divide, where maybe people like you and I who have benefited to some degree with regard to COVID, they don't want to let go of what they've benefited from. If they work in research labs, if they work in IT, even regular corporate jobs, they've been able to work from home. They've been able to commute via Zoom and Microsoft Teams or Slack. But people are waking up and they're getting sick of it, especially truckers. Truckers are the perfect class of people to enact change in Canada, or really any country, but they are actually doing work, blue collar work on the road. They're out there physically. Do they require a vaccination passport as they're crossing through different territories, in the case of Canada, provinces? That's going to annoy them. Plus, I mean, they're driving alone. It's not like they're around a ton of people all the time. So it's really kind of a perfect utility for opposing what's going on in Canada, and of course what's going on across other countries like Australia and Germany. We're not seeing the protests at all. And again, the mainstream media is going after Dr. Malone, Jordan Peterson, who's a Canadian professor from the University of Toronto, who appeared on Joe Rogan a few days ago, and Neil Young, who is a Canadian musician, ironically too, who wanted to push Spotify, which is a Swedish company, mind you. They wanted to deplatform Joe Rogan, who just got a $100 million contract from Spotify. And he is, I think his average podcast gets about 11 million views over the course of a week. And then it gets additional views. Some of his podcasts have reached 100 million views over a month. So CNN is getting 500,000 views per week, and it's actually rapidly declining right now.
Well,
So
Stelter
there's a
had
huge attack.
Stelter last weekend. Stelter had 50,000 people watching his weekend show.
50,000,
That's
really?
sad. 50,000, and that's basically televisions on in airports and bars.
Right.
You know, I find it interesting, and this is how you know the media is corrupt to its core. That, I mean, I always see that meme that the media companies are controlled by 8 corporations or 5 corporations or something like that, and it's true. But when you have a convoy of truckers protesting, and it looks like they just busted down barricades in Ottawa, protesting. When you don't have a single mainstream news network reporting on it, a convoy hundreds of miles long, but you have the media obsessed with Neil Young and now Willie Nelson and Pearl Jam and some of these other artists pulling their music off Spotify because Joe Rogan. Let's be real. Who the fuck gives a shit about Neil Young? Who the fuck gives a shit about Willie Nelson? Who the fuck gives a shit about Pearl Jam? Nobody. I mean, nobody goes on Spotify to listen to these artists. It's a clown show. Um, do you think? Uh, do you really think that the listenership of Spotify for Neil Young compares to that of Joe Rogan? Hell no. It's a drop in the bucket. I mean, no one's signing up for Spotify to listen to Neil Young or Willie Nelson or Pearl Jam or any other artist. Um,
Yeah, but
you
isn't
know,
Neil
you
Young,
don't
when he's making a big deal out of this, isn't he getting some publicity for his songs?
well, exactly. They're drama farming. But when you have the news, push this narrative like, oh, Neil Young's gonna pull his music off Spotify if Spotify doesn't remove Joe Rogan. It's not in Spotify's business interest to remove Joe Rogan. It has, like you said, the number one podcast in the world, millions, sometimes tens of millions of listeners for a single podcast. Neil Young probably gets 2 clicks a day, and the media hypes it up like um, like pulling Neil Young's music off Spotify is the end all be all. It's just lies. It's propaganda. Um,
It's kind of,
it's sad.
it would be fun to figure out who told Neil Young to make a big deal out of this. And more importantly, it seems like this is a baby boomer thing because he was able to somehow convince like Joni Mitchell and some other, I guess baby boomer generation or maybe even some of the 60 era musicians to pull their music off Spotify. Not that that matters, but is he playing to maybe his listener base? Because most anyone who listens to that music is probably a baby boomer or older.
Well, probably, but I don't know any baby boomers listening to Spotify, downloading
There you
Spotify.
go. Exactly.
And let's be clear, the baby boomers are one of the worst generations ever. I mean, they have absolutely raped and pillaged the financial system. They have left nothing for their children.
Yeah.
You know, millennials can't buy homes.
It's true.
They are stuck in jobs with stagnant wages, not able to move up in the corporate ladder. They've basically created a system of enslavement with student loans and debt. They don't raise families. And the baby boomers have sat there and they have soaked up the wealth that they have stolen from the next generation. Their parents didn't do that. Their parents were the greatest generation. They were fighting World War II and they made sure to plant a tree for which the shade of that tree that they would never sit under. They provided for the boomers, and now the baby boomers have raped and pillaged the economy. They have raped and pillaged, basically society, changing our norms and values, and they have left nothing for millennials, Zoomers, nothing. And that is what's really going to lead to the downfall of America.
Well, what does this stem from? In the 60s, there was this sort of revolution in society to fight the Vietnam War, oppose Lyndon Johnson, and to some degree Richard Nixon. And what they did was, Joe Rogan was talking about this. He had a guest on named James Lindsay. And a lot of these revolutionaries who were actually communists, he calls them Marxists. And at the time, he called them woke Marxists. And they actually moved into education. And they parroted a lot of the same Marxist ideologies into K through 12 education in this country. And then they built these teacher colleges and so forth to basically indoctrinate the population for the next 20 years. Of course, all those other things in setting up these corporations, which corporations are really just a form of socialism. It's a partnership between private individuals and the state to share responsibilities, and that's the exact definition from a theory point of view of socialism. And corporations and corporate entities have, to some degree, destroyed individual rights in this country. Um, and that a lot of these corporations are actually behind these vaccine mandates. It's not necessarily the federal government and OSHA pushing these. It's these private, well, they're not. They're supposedly private. These corporations that are still mandating vaccines, and who is behind that? Baby boomers. Baby boomers. And why?
Well, you
Because
see it.
they're now health wise probably compromised to some extent. We've probably seen more baby boomers die from COVID than any other generation. Well, of course, maybe the greatest generation had a high numbers because they were mostly elderly. But here we go with the corporations. Here we go with the baby boomers pushing their form of socialism onto us, which we are certainly millennials, but even younger generations, which I can't remember the name of the generation behind us. But I mean, if anyone's getting beat down, it's that generation. I mean, they have nothing. They have absolutely nothing.
You have to look. The prime example is corporate Hollywood, right? So as you said, they went into teachers' colleges. They wokeified the hell out of universities. They pushed kids to 4-year degrees instead of going to trade schools. But one of the things that they did, and this was part of the plan, to drive conflict and to really, I guess, wokeify this country, was they took over Hollywood. So now you see all these movies and it's this woke garbage. The Little Mermaid is black. The Lord of the Rings has black hobbits, and I mean, everything is the girl who is key to everything. You see that on everything. They've trashed, storied franchises like Star Wars and Star Trek and Doctor Who, and part of that plan is that they wanted to go into Hollywood and inject their woke politics, identity politics, into entertainment, so they became unwatchable, so that nobody had an escape from politics. You can remember in the 90s and the 2000s when, you could go and watch a movie and you could escape from this political conflict all the time. Now you can't go to the movies. It's political. Everything has
nonstop.
identity politics in it, and nobody wants to watch it. So the idea was inject it, inject it, inject it. So everything is about politics. There's no escape, and everyone's fighting. Everything is about politics. You have to pick a side, and it is nonstop, all the time, all out.
Just to be clear, there's nothing wrong with casting black actors or actresses in movies. That's all well and good. It's the fact that there's this political fabric behind it, and they're always pushing some political narrative, whether that's
Well, no. It's taking an existing character, and race swapping them or gender bending them for the purpose of identity politics.
Right.
If you have a character who could be played as a woman or a man or a black person or a white person or a Latino, that's fine. But taking, for instance, Superman and making Superman black just for the purpose of making Superman black, for identity politics purposes, that's creatively bankrupt, and that's what's really driving people away from entertainment, and it's creating this constant fueled political tension, fighting all the time.
Marxist ideology is about breaking down the social construct of gender, of race, and our roles in society. And that's exactly what you're seeing. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with you that you shouldn't be able to cast a black actor as Superman, but I can see where the divergence there is that okay, we're basically saying that we're going to completely reform or renormalize is the term, renormalize that character to meet the expectations of a radical political group. In this case, maybe potentially the Black Lives Matters group, which is completely corrupt, by the way, but other social justice initiatives. And so when these roles and these constructs get broken down, we don't know what's truth, we don't know what's false, I mean, of course but at the same time, everything is changing. It's like a constant revolution. Every new movie, it seems like, art is about pushing the boundary. It's about always kind of the fine line between what is right and what is wrong. But at this point, it's just constant revolution. Constant, men having babies, trans women who become men but then become pregnant but look completely like men who are married to other men or women. It's just like, and then you can't label them appropriately. And this has invaded education too. You're seeing this on like the Libs of TikTok channel on Twitter. Not a channel, it's an account. But there's a TikTok account that makes fun of liberals. And oftentimes they go into schools and they look at some of these teachers. And these teachers are requiring students 5, 7, 8, 9 years old to label the teacher according to their pronouns. So non-binary teachers get they or them, and they teach the kids how to address them appropriately. It's just so much nonsense. There was one I watched where they have changed the naming conventions in their IT system, so the actual properties that pop out. So instead of like Mr. Anderson or Mrs. Anderson, it'll be Marquez Ortiz or they or them. I don't, and the other thing is when I was in school, I don't even think that they had a picture of the president at the time when I was in elementary school. Maybe that was the original Bush. But now you have Black Lives Matters posters in elementary schools. You have pictures of Obama, and you have pictures of this queer ideology. You have the rainbow flags. You have all this other stuff. I don't know if that's necessarily healthy for kids. I don't know if their intellectual capacities are built up enough at that point to make a really qualified decision on whether that would be appropriate to even consider thinking about some of those things. And really that is part of the problem is that it's like a selfishness. These teachers think that the world revolves around them, and when you're in a school, the kids are the most important thing. It doesn't matter what you want, it matters what the kids want and what society wants for the kids. You cannot teach them woke cultures in school. You need to teach them the lesson plan, English, the alphabet, basic math, geography, that stuff.
Well, you can't teach. The problem is, critical race theory is being taught, and it's an offshoot of a radical theory that began in law schools, which is law schools are incubators for bad ideas, coming from stupid people who are mostly admitted. Or who are mostly affirmative action admits, and they are teaching that in school, and they are teaching that one race oppressed another race, one race is better than another race, and it's wrong. Kids are there to learn the basics: arithmetic, reading, writing, history. Not that one student has an inherent advantage and is an oppressor because of their skin color, while another student will have systematic disadvantages their entire lives because of their skin color. That's not true. It's very radical, and it does a lot to damage the psyche of children. I just sent you a link to Joe Rogan's Spotify response. I think you should play it.
Let me find it.
He's pissed everybody off.
Let's see where it is. To edit this out.
Hello, friends. I wanted to make a video to address some of the controversy that's been going on over the past few days. And first of all, to say thank you to everyone that sent love and support. I truly, truly appreciate it. And it's been very nice to hear from you. I wanted to make this video, first of all, because I think there's a lot of people that have a distorted perception of what I do, maybe based on sound bites or based on headlines of articles that are disparaging. The podcast has been accused of spreading dangerous misinformation, specifically about 2 episodes, a little bit about some other ones, but specifically about 2. One with Dr. Peter McCullough and one with Dr. Robert Malone. Dr. Peter McCullough is a cardiologist, and he is the most published physician in his field in history. Dr. Robert Malone owns 9 patents on the creation of mRNA vaccine technology and is at least partially responsible for the creation of the technology that led to mRNA vaccines. Both these people are very highly credentialed, very intelligent, very accomplished people, and they have an opinion that's different from the mainstream narrative. I wanted to hear what their opinion is. I had them on, and because of that, those episodes in particular, those episodes were labeled as being dangerous. They had dangerous misinformation in them. The problem I have with the term misinformation, especially today, is that many of the things that we thought of as misinformation just a short while ago are now accepted as fact. Like, for instance, 8 months ago, if you said, if you get vaccinated, you can still catch COVID and you can still spread COVID, you would be removed from social media. They would ban you from certain platforms. Now, that's accepted as fact. If you said, I don't think cloth masks work, you would be banned from social media. Now, that's openly and repeatedly stated on CNN. If you said, I think it's possible that COVID-19 came from a lab, you'd be banned from many social media platforms. Now, that's on the cover of Newsweek. All of those theories that at one point in time were banned were openly discussed by those 2 men that I had on my podcast that have been accused of dangerous misinformation. I do not know if they're right. I don't know, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a person who sits down and talks to people and has conversations with them. Do I get things wrong? Absolutely, I get things wrong, but I try to correct them. Whenever I get something wrong, I try to correct it, because I'm interested in telling the truth. I'm interested in finding out what the truth is. And I'm interested in having interesting conversations with people that have differing opinions. I'm not interested in only talking to people that have one perspective. That's one of the reasons why I had Sanjay Gupta on, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who I respect very much, and I really enjoyed our conversation together. He has a different opinion than those men do. I had Dr. Michael Osterholm on at the very beginning of the pandemic.
He's from the University of Minnesota.
He is on President Biden's COVID-19 advisory board. I had Dr. Peter Hotez on, who is a vaccine expert. I'm interested in finding out what is correct, and I'm also finding out how people come to these conclusions and what the facts are. Now, because of this controversy, and I'm sure there's a lot of other things going on behind the scenes with these controversies, but Neil Young has removed his music from the platform of Spotify, and Joni Mitchell, and apparently some other people want to as well. I'm very sorry that they feel that way. I most certainly don't want that. I'm a Neil Young fan. I've always been a Neil Young fan. I'll tell you a story at the end of this about that. One of the things that Spotify wants to do that I agree with is that at the beginning of these controversial podcasts, like specifically ones about COVID, is to put a disclaimer and say that you should speak with your physician, and that these people and the opinions that they express are contrary to the opinions of the consensus of experts, which I think is very important. Sure, have that on there. I'm very happy with that. Also, I think if there's anything that I've done that I could do better is have more experts with differing opinions right after I have the controversial ones. I would most certainly be open to doing that. And I would like to talk to some people that have differing opinions on those podcasts in the future. We'll see. I do all the scheduling myself, and I don't always get it right. These podcasts are very strange because they're just conversations, and oftentimes I have no idea what I'm going to talk about until I sit down and talk to people, and that's why some of my ideas are not that prepared or fleshed out, because I'm literally having them in real time. But I do my best, and they're just conversations, and I think that's also the appeal of the show. It's one of the things that makes it interesting. So I want to thank Spotify for being so supportive during this time, and I'm very sorry that this is happening to them and that they're taking so much heat from it. And so now the Neil Young story. When I first of all, I'm not mad at Neil Young. I'm a huge Neil Young fan. I've always been a Neil Young fan. When I was 19, I was a security guard at a place called Great Woods in Mansfield, Massachusetts. It's an outdoor concert.
Joe Rogan is a pussy.
Neil Young was playing there, and this was the last day I worked there. I quit during the Neil Young concert. The job is kind of crazy because there was a lot of times those fights broke out and stuff, and I think I probably got like $15 an hour, and I was not about to get beat up for $15 an hour. So I would bring a hoodie with me whenever I worked. So in case the shit hit the fan and it got too crazy, I would just put my hoodie on and leave and cover my security outfit, my security shirt. So one day during a Neil Young concert, there's the amphitheater, the way it's set up is there's a covered area outside that has seats, and then there's a lawn area behind it. And the lawn area during the Neil Young concert, they got a little rowdy. It was cold out, and they started bonfires. So they had these raging fires on the lawn, and we were supposed to go and put these fires out and stop them. So we tried for a little while, but then brawls started breaking out, and it started getting crazy. And I was like, fuck this. So I put my hoodie on, I zipped it up, and I left. And I drove home, and as I was driving home, I was singing, "Keep on rocking in a free world." That was my last day on the job. I don't even think I collected my last check. So no hard feelings towards Neil Young, and definitely no hard feelings towards Joni Mitchell. I love her too. I love her music. Chucky's in Love is a great song. I don't know what else I can do differently other than maybe try harder to get people with different
Stop being a pussy
right afterwards. I do think that that's important.
Let's see how long this goes.
And do my best.
He's got 2 more minutes of apologizing to do.
Research these topics.
He shouldn't apologize for their actions.
And have all the pertinent facts at hand.
He's bending the knee as usual, instead of getting up, standing up, defending the fact that he had these experts in the field on his podcast and had conversations with them. he's apologizing and pussing out. Um,
Typical Joe
sad,
Rogan.
typical liberal scum.
Well, you know, it's
But it is a fair point that he should have um, counter opinions on. People on with differing perspectives to give a balanced, really a balanced view of the issues. But um, he's a pussy. He had these people on. People wanted to hear what they had to say. Uh, as he put it at the beginning, a lot of the things that were classified as misinformation, 6 months ago, a year ago, are facts now. And he had people on who were experts in their field, and um, you know, he pussed out. He basically bent the knee to the woke mob. It's sad, but it happens, and there are very few people who will not bend the knee to the woke mob. And those are really the people that we all should be looking up to, are the people who refuse to bend the knee.
well, the way that I look at it is, and I've listened to a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts, is his first instinct is correct. To listen to Dr. Robert Malone and some of the others that have come on. Of course, sharing that alternate point of view is good as well, but this is his personal response. So this is different than kind of the podcast thing, which he has millions of listeners. So when he comes on and does this personal thing where he apologizes to Joni Mitchell and Neil Young and the others, or at least tries to minimize the friction, he's trying to save his $100 million contract. That's the only thing he's trying to do here. He doesn't give a shit about Neil Young. That just shows you he ran away from defending Neil Young when he was a security guard, apparently. Whether the story is true or not, who knows?
Who cares?
But that just shows you he runs. He's a coward.
He's a coward. He doesn't stand up to the woke mob, doesn't stand up to the corruption. If it was me, I'd have come out and said, listen, I have nothing against Neil Young. I like his music. But, at the same time,
he's wrong.
24 hours,
his
24 hours a
actions.
day, 7 days a week. You have a narrative being pushed on mainstream media 24/7. There are experts in the field who have a different perspective, a different opinion, a different scientific conclusion than what's being pushed. And I had these people on not so they could spread information or propagandize, but to have a discussion with them. And there is nothing wrong with having a discussion with somebody. And I'm sorry that Neil Young and Joni Mitchell and Pearl Jam and whoever else are against having a discourse. It's really sad, but I'm not going to change what I do. Fuck off, fuckers.
Yeah, that was a paltry response. I expected a lot better from Joe Rogan. I'll still listen to his podcast, but
pussy.
Yeah, it's a pussy response. Hopefully he learns from that. And the interesting thing too here is that Jordan Peterson and James Lindsay and a couple of these other, intellectuals have told him repeatedly that apologizing to the mob doesn't do anything for you. It makes it worse. And Alex Jones has told him that. Anyways, so hope he's steered correctly here. He's waking up a little bit to what's going on with the New World Order and the global elites here with the COVID ramp up. The other thing I wanted to talk about.
The deep state double agent has to go to bed, homie.
All right.
We can discuss tomorrow.
Okay, bye.
All right, later.
Later, bye.